Hello and welcome to another Magic the Gathering with Toby Bennett. So here we're going to go through a white blacklist. It's heavy on white, it's white aggro. And so I've started here with the mana base and we're going to go through things by converted mana cost. So first of all we've got our bread and butter land from Gatecrash, Godless Shrine, so I'll show you the English one. Godless Shrine, so it's a shock land, we all know what they do. If you don't, then they come in tapped, and if you pay 2 life, and they tap for either white or black. So that's the old faithful. But then we have the new Scryland, Temple of Silence, or Temple of Scrylands. Boom. And when it enters battlefield taps, so it's at gate speed, but you know that's a sacrifice that needs to be paid because you get to scry 1. So it's a nice little ability. And then we have lots of lovely planes. I think there's a lot of them. There's about 16. Right, so that's the land. So now we'll go on to the 1-drop. So we've got 12 1-drops in the deck. Here they all are. So here's 4 Soldier of the Pantheon, 4 Boros Elite, 4 Justice Minister. So these are the 12 creatures, and then we have probably the best card in the deck, Brave the Elements. So we'll go through the creatures first. So we've got Soldier of the Pantheon, who is a better Elite Vanguard because he's still a 1-mana 2/1. He's got protection from multicoloured, which is awesome. The number of games that has made such a difference. And whenever an opponent casts a multicoloured spell, you gain 1, which is really good against decks that play like Burning Tree Emissary and Boros Reckoner, because you can get through them and you can also deal with them. Oh, sorry, no, not deal with them. Gain 1 life when they cast them, and that can be really crucial against the aggro decks. So that's Soldier of the Pantheon. Then we've got Boros Elite, he's a 1-mana that can become a 3/3, and I've seen people they just get so scared of this guy. I mean, when he battalions up, it's crazy, and this deck battalions up very easily. And then we have one of my favourite cards in Magic, Judge's Familiar. So this is the F&M version, and he is a 1-mana 1/1, and he has flying, and you can sacrifice him and counter an instant or sorcery spell unless your opponent plays 1, and that can and that delays Anger of the Gods and every other spell you just don't want them casting. That delays it for a turn, and then you can start working out answers, which is really, really nice. So, and he's also got flying, and a bit of evasion in this deck never goes amiss. Talking of evasion, Brave the Elements. With all these devotion decks at the moment, this is an amazing card, because say you're playing Blue Devotion, they drop a Master of Waves, they've got a ton of guys in the field, you cannot get through, you're dead next turn. You draw this. If you have lethal damage on board, you've won, because they will not be able to block you. It's brilliant. And also, if, say, Anger of the Gods, I was playing against Jund, and he Anger of the Gods, I had a Brave the Elements, so I played the Brave the Elements. Next turn, he then did it again, Brave the Elements again, and I managed to win. It's just the number of games it has won me. Absolutely crazy. So, best card of the deck, official. Then we'll move on to the 2-drops. So we have 11 4-drops. Sorry about my appalling maths there. So we've got 4 Precinct Captain, 3 Imposing Sovereign, 2 Daring Skyjack, 1 in Chinese, and 2 Orzhov Charm. So we'll start with Precinct Captains. So the Precinct Captains, if they get online, you've won, because they make so many guys and they deal damage and they're a good blocker because they have first strike. It's just an all-round really solid card, and that's why the white decks play him. He also makes more guys to battalion up with. So since we're on battalion, let's talk about Daring Skyjack. So do have a Chinese one, but unless you can speak Chinese, probably not the best. So Daring Skyjack. Whenever he battalions, he gains flying, and he's a 2-mana 3/1. It's really good fun. He's a good card because if needs be, he can just act as a bolt, But that 3 damage is pretty key when it comes down to it. Then we have Imposing Sovereign, which really, really messes up the aggro decks and the mid-range decks actually, because it's a blind obedience on a stick. Sadly, it doesn't have Extort, but creatures your opponent control enter the battlefield tapped. That's just such a good ability for us because it slows down their blocking potential. So even if they do drop that Blood Baron on turn 5, you're going to kill them that turn before it untaps. So that's why this card is a brilliant card, and it's made the 3 slot. It didn't make the 4th, purely because for 2 mana, we kind of want more than a 2-1. I mean, yeah, it's got a brilliant ability, but its toughness brings it down quite a bit because anything can kill it, pretty much. So, bit of a shame, but... And then we have Orzhov Charm. So, Orzhov Charm acts as a Vendetta, or a bounce spell to save a creature. If you're running Brimaz, you can always do that. This deck doesn't actually run Brimaz, A, because he's £28, and B, because we want more humans, because it's the Zathric Necromancer build. And he also can recur a creature that's 1 mana, and you return it to the battlefield. So say it's a Sword of the Pantheon, you can return it to the battlefield, block their 2 toughness creature, multicolored creature is, and just save your guy, get him back, and you can start attacking on the backswing. So that's also a pretty useful card, just as removal. So we'll go on to the 3 drops. Now this deck finishes at 3. So we've got 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. So we've got 10 3 drops, and we're looking to get another Zathric Necromancer in place of a land, because at the moment there's slightly too much land. So we've got the Frontline Medic first. So this card is really in deliberation at the moment because he's so good, in my opinion, but others aren't so sure. First of all, he's a human, so with the Zathric Necromancer he combos. Secondly, he's a 3 mana 3/3, which is always good. He then has the Battalion effect of whenever he and 2 other guys attack, everything gains indestructibility. That is just so helpful. It just lets you attack all the time, and if you're running the build that runs Heliod, then you can just attack all the time. But also, there's an ability right at the bottom which says Sacrifice Frontline Medic, counter target spell with X in its mana cost. Unless the controller plays 3. What instant or sorcery do we know that has X? Would that be Sphinx's Revelation? Oh yes, it would be. Sphinx's Rev is a complete pain for this deck because it gains life. You chuck one of him under the bus, that's completely fine. So that won me the quarterfinals of Theros Game Day by stopping Sphinx's Revelation. So that's Frontline Medic. Then we get Spear of Heliod, or I've heard it pronounced Helioid, but the spelling, it's Heliod. Heliod. So it's a 3 mana legendary enchantment artifact, so one of the new sort of Theros gimmicks. Creatures you control get +1/+1. So it's an anthem effect, which is always great in the weenie decks. And then it also has 3 mana tap, destroy target creature that dealt damage to you this turn. So that's really good, sort of dealing with desecration demons and the like. So I only have the 1 because I only see the need for 1 at the moment. If I need more, I'll add more, but the 1 does it for me at the moment. And then we have Zathric Necromancer. So the deck is actually built around him. He's a human wizard for 3 mana, 2/2, and whenever he or another human dies, you get a zombie. And zombies are usually stronger than humans, and you can start killing everything. It's great against those decks that have lots of removal. And again, with the Judge's Familiar, it delays sort of the anger of the gods. Not the anger of the gods, because that exiles. The Drowning Sorrows for a turn. Then you play him, and then you can... And then they might drown in sorrows, but all your zombies survive. Drowning Sorrows does not mutilate. Yeah. And then we have just a card that every white deck that has creatures needs. So obviously not the blue-white deck because it has Detention Sphere. But here he is, Banisher Priest, absolutely brilliant. Detention Sphere on a stick, and he's only white. The only problem is he's got 2 toughness rather than Fiend Hunter's 3, so kind of miss Fiend Hunter. But the 2 power, it can be significant if you've got the frontline medic on the field, and you just can attack with him as well. Okay, so that's the main deck done. So we've seen everything in the main deck, and then we have the sideboard. So the sideboard is just other great cards. Most of the sideboard usually has a black splash. So we'll go with the Ajani first. So Ajani is the white planeswalker from M14. He's 3 mana, +1, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature until end of turn. He's got 4 loyalty, so that's pretty good. His -3, target creature gains flying and double strike until end of turn. That's just fantastic. I mean, this is the card that usually replaces Frontline Medic along with Daring Skyjet, because you can see I was only running the 2, most other decks run 4, so it's usually 2 Ajanis in and 2 Daring Skyjets and Frontline Medics out. But I just prefer the Frontline Medic, but Ajani's ultimate's never really going to go off, but if it does, you've won. So -8, put X 2/2 cats, and X is your life total. So that's just a pretty solid card. Then we have Renounce the Guilds. So Boros Reckoner really starts to shut this deck down, and also you've got things like Phenax. So Phenax? No, not Phenax. Xenagos. Xenagos, Domri, all those ones that cause problems in the Monsters matchup. So good card there. Then we have just for you, Mono Black, Dark Trail. So it's a 1 mana destroy target black creature. Does what you want it to. Bye-bye Desecration Demon. On the flip side, when we come up in the mirror match, we board this in. Doomblade. So destroy target non-black creature. Obviously, we'd only board it in if it's the red-white matchup, because they really don't like this card. Also, against white, probably against blue-white as well, this comes in. So exile target white permanent. Oh, that's a nice Elspeth you've got there. Wapow. And that's how that works. That's simple decision. Then a new card from Born of the Gods, which was the latest set. Revoke Existence. So it's not actually a new card. It was at least in Mirrored and Besieged, I believe the set was. And it exiles target artifact or enchantment. So 2 mana, so it's a good card. Some decks are starting to play them in the main board. Then we have Fiendslayer Paladin, black and red matchups. Against the aggro, he's got the strike and the lifelink. And he can't be targeted by their burn. Against the black and the Jund, he just gets past their removal. Then we have Ready and Willing. So we can only cast the Willing side, so although Ready is quite cool, there's Willing. So it's sort of if it's a good board stall, if they're forced to block when I've got a frontline medic on the field, just cast Willing, get a ton of life, and kill all their board, and then backswing them to death. And then we've got Sin Collector. I'll show you Derpy Face FNM, and simple does what it says on the tin. He's a 2/1 for 3. And he collects your sins and gets rid of those nasty Supreme Verdicts. That's the card. So that is the sideboard. Finally, I know this video is quite long, but thank you if you've kept on watching. Finally, we've got the tokens. So these are custom-made tokens. So this one's actually from Icarus Magic. Very nice token. Then we've got 3 homemade soldiers. Finally, we have a Chinese Return to Ravnica soldier. And then my personal favourite, Iron Man zombies. Ooh, Iron Man zombies. I think these ones are particularly cool, and I quite like my Satyr Necromancers being killed, just so I get to play these. Okay, so I'll just say who's got my stuff. So my 9-cap box is from Ultra Pro, and my playmat is from Dragon Shield. Thank you very much for watching. This has been Toby Bennett discussing Mono White Weenie. Leave a like and subscribe if you want to. Thanks for watching again, and I will see you later.